What up, everybody? Back and better than ever. That's right, Rob is also back from Disney. That means it's going to be a fantabulous episode. Thank you for being here. I am Captain Boring. That is not CFB3, aka is out on assignment, aka he's at the beach. Yes, we are back. Go follow us on TikTok, 4th and 1 Pod. Go follow us on Instagram, 4th and 1 Podcast. Like, subscribe, and share. We are still doing the contest giveaway. There's money to be won this week. So at this point, just click the link below or listen till later in the podcast and I'll give you all the deets. But you don't even got to stick around for that much because at this point, I'm just giving away free money because no one wants the money, which I'm a little surprised at. You know, if I listen to a podcast and they're giving away now $40, you know, I just try to go take that. Anyway, Rob, welcome back. You're back from Disney.
Yeah,
Hot.
I'm here.
Swampy.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that's Florida in a nutshell.
That is Florida in a nutshell. I would like at this point to turn the floor over to you. You do owe our listeners an apology for double dipping with USF and just coming up, well, far short on the parlay. Your leg is the only leg that didn't hit.
You know, sometimes that's just how it goes. You know, I drank a little too much of the USF juice. I was like, I also didn't think Miami was going to be as prolific offensively as what they were. But yeah, I will go ahead. I will take, I'll take the L. I'll apologize to our listeners out there. Just as long as the Notre Dame faithful apologize to us, because the sham of the century that they are to be 0-2, the only team ever to be 0-2 and still be in the top 25 after getting their tails beaten twice.
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody. The double champ does what the he wants.
Yeah, so that's our thoughts on the whole Notre Dame situation. Yeah, I completely agree. All the Notre Dame fans that were in the comments preseason when I said there's a chance Notre Dame starts 0-2. There's a chance that there are some grumblings around South Bend, Indiana about coaching and quarterback and stuff like that. And we just got railed online. Pause. We got absolutely destroyed. Not sure that's better, but we'll continue online in the comments. 0-2. Only team to start 0-2 and remain in the AP poll, you said. I don't think that necessarily is a bad thing because I do want teams to be rewarded for playing a tough schedule, right? Like the fact that I kind of agree that Nebraska isn't ranked after just playing FCS schools the last 2 weeks, right? I'm mad that Indiana is ranked as high as they are going into their game with Illinois this week. Indiana, I don't think, has played, to bring back the old saying, a cricket in a cornfield. They've played Old Dominion, who did beat Virginia Tech, but that says more about Virginia Tech. We'll get to them in a minute. Kennesaw State and Indiana State. Where's that? So if it comes down to the end of the year where Indiana has one loss, and it's between them or Notre Dame, I really do hope that Notre Dame gets in over Indiana because they played two fantastic teams to start the season. But that's not what we're here for. This podcast knew that Notre Dame was going to start 0-2. This podcast told you Notre Dame was going to start 0-2, and all we've got is hate for it. Yes, did it take a Tyler Buckner, little mishandling of the snap? Absolutely it did. But guess what? Sometimes better to be lucky than good. Little Michael Jordan shrug. How do you feel about Notre Dame overall, though, kind of moving forward as what you've seen on television?
I mean, they have such a soft schedule on the back end. Like, it's not going to surprise me if end of the year they're 10-2. USC is the only ranked team. North Carolina State's undefeated, but it's only week 3, so we'll see how they kind of pan out. USC's ranked 25th. We'll see how they kind of pan out. But other than that, Syracuse isn't turning out to be anything. Stanford is garbage.
They
Pitt
did get a win on Saturday, by the way.
Well, good for them.
And then no one was up for,
Yeah.
but they did get a win.
Yeah, Pitt won, Pitt did. They lost to West Virginia because they just pissed around the entire time. They're going to end up 10-2, and then it's going to come down to, well, who do we put in? And it's that you're going to have to look at Notre Dame and say, yeah, they lost the ranked games, especially if Miami finishes in the top 10 and Texas A&M finishes in the top 10, and it's like, well, who's their signature win?
There is an argument that Arkansas, if they win this weekend, they could be ranked maybe after a close game with Ole Miss over the weekend. So, maybe if USC and Arkansas is ranked, but however, if they lose again to Arkansas or USC, I think at this point now you're looking at and them not having a conference championship or a conference affiliation by any means, and they're just independent. Now I think we're into that hurts Notre Dame, right? I think that conversation with 2 or even 3 losses, okay, say they were in the ACC and they had 2 losses but still made the ACC title game. Okay, now we've had this conversation before in previous years, but a 2-loss Notre Dame team without a sitting at home on championship Saturday, that really is where it's going to come and kind of bite them in the butt.
When push comes to shove at the end of the year, Notre Dame goes 10-2, and it's between them, the runner-up of the Big Ten championship, the runner-up of the ACC, Big 12, SEC championship. Those teams are going to get the nod because they played that extra game, and that's their reward. This is where being the big independent team school, it kind of comes back to bite you. It's great when you only have 1 loss at the beginning of the season, but when you have 2, you're on the ropes. If you lose another one, you might as well just start planning for next season.
What do you think about CJ Carr?
He's a freshman. It's the same thing with Bryce. You're expecting so much at a premier college that had really good success last year, and Michigan 2 years ago, or 3, however long it was. But the expectations are so high to where they're not meeting it yet, but in a way it's okay because they're freshmen. They're going to figure it out. They're going to grow. If this was the 2nd or 3rd year that they're in, now it's okay, we got to go a different direction. It's not getting any better. CJ Carr can probably carry, not singularly carry, but I think he'll be okay as Notre Dame's quarterback. It's just going to take time. It's hard when you go in at Miami, first collegiate game. That's a tough one, and then you get a home game against Texas A&M. Those are 2 tough games. Luckily, he gets Purdue.
Yeah, Purdue.
So,
yeah,
that helps.
I definitely have thought through 2 games. He has done the one thing I want freshmen to do, which is not lose the game.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't been the reason they have lost the last 2 games, which I think is an encouraging sign, as you have said. Let's flip it over to Texas A&M. I didn't mean to talk about this game first and foremost, but since we're here, let's just talk about it. Marcel Reed, listen, he was 17 of 37, so well under 50%, but he balled out. He had 37 yards rushing as well. He had 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, QBR just shy of 80. I thought that he was a baller, and Notre Dame's defense kind of punched him in the mouth a few times, sometimes shoulder, and that's quite literally. Took some big hits, got right back up, and just kept firing and firing, especially down the stretch of this game. Texas A&M's got some weapons now. Between Mario Craver and CJ Concepcion, they've got some dudes that the SEC will have to pay attention to moving forward, I think.
Yeah. And Texas A&M also has it's not a favorable schedule by any means, but they have a schedule where if they lose, they're like in the opposite boat of what A&M or what Notre Dame is. They lose 2 games, they're still okay because they still get LSU at 3, Missouri at 23, Texas at 8. Their resume will look a lot better. Losing 2, you can get in.
Right.
As a team, though, it's got to be for the first time in a couple of years where, as an Aggie fan, you got to be pumped. And Elko's got to be pumped too.
Yes, I agree with you. I would just throw one thing of caution that I have just noticed, not saying that this is a trend and that this will continue, but in their 3 games, they've given up 40 to Notre Dame, 22 to Utah State, and 24 to UTSA. That's not what I'm really accustomed to with a Mike Elko defense. I'm accustomed to under 20 kind of points per game. So I would just keep my eye on that. Their next game is home versus Auburn. Then they get Mississippi State, who had a good win. And Florida, who we'll get to them in just 1 second, seemed to kind of be falling apart. And then they go on a road to Arkansas, LSU, as you mentioned, and Missouri. I want to keep an eye on the defense, but I definitely like kind of where they're at early on.
It kind of seems like Texas A&M is following the trend of TCU, where it was shootout until they played a team where it was like, you can't outshoot this team.
Right. Alrighty, so let's kind of backtrack and let's talk about the firings real quick that happened this week. This is the earliest set of coaching firings. Last week it was week 8. There were some kind of mid-major firings earlier than that, but kind of Power 4 conference firings. This is kind of the earliest it's been in quite some time. So Virginia Tech starts 0-3, loses to Old Dominion. Brent Pry out. I think he's like 6. He's well under 500. He only has 16 wins in 3 seasons. UCLA, Deshaun Foster, he is also out. In the group chat, I said I totally get the Brent Pry firing of Virginia Tech. UCLA makes no sense to me. Robert, you rebutted with a money issue. I'm just going to let you take it from here because I do concede the point. I do agree with the firing. So what do you think of the UCLA firing?
I mean, it's in a time and era where everything is win now. You're paying these schools that you should be handling, whether easily or still beating, but they paid like 1.5 and 1.3. So you're paying these schools $3 million to come to you, and you're losing. And it's not like it's a close loss. Like, you're going to get beat down by these teams. That's the first red flag. The second red flag is now you're bringing in players that you're also paying. So now you're losing money across the board. Your attendance is going down, so you're not getting that revenue back into the stadium. So it's kind of easier and cheaper just to get rid of the coach than it is the players and just put someone in there to kind of like a Band-Aid and limp your way, try and get the team together, something. I think Foster just kind of he did get a raw deal, but no one wants to go to UCLA. It's tough.
It was a big red flag to me about the UCLA program when they entered the Big Ten and it was known that they were going to join the Big Ten, and Chip Kelly said, I'm going to go be an offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
At that point, I'm just like, So, Pete Thamel has reported and talked about that like they're just not putting money into football. They're putting money into other things, which again, that's fine. But
it's not a terrible thing.
It's not a terrible thing. But then you can't get mad at a coach who this is his first major head coaching job, doesn't live up to expectations. There are no expectations. Your expectations were pre-built that Nico was a high-level quarterback coming from Tennessee. I think Joey Aguilar this past weekend, in his performance against Georgia, proved that Nico really was the reason Tennessee's offense had to be a run-oriented offense last year. There was no vertical passing game. And there is now in Tennessee's offense, and it's fantastic, and I love watching Tennessee's offense again. So I will be interested to see who they get. Now it will be interesting because now you normally see kids, when a coach firing happens, you see kids now jump in the transfer portal, red shirt to save the year, right? But now there are game checks involved.
Yeah.
So who's going to sacrifice game checks?
Yeah.
And who's going to sacrifice game checks for a potential future opportunity, or who's going to play for the money? And I hate to put it that way, but that's what it is now, right?
Do we know what Foster's buyout was? Did he have one? I would assume, but
I can look it up
because prize was 6.
Yeah,
which in the grand scheme of things, $6 million is. For Virginia Tech, it might be kind of not a lot, but substantial, I guess, on their end with not really the success that their program has.
His was also $6.3 million. Yeah, so I mean, not a lot in the grand scheme of things, right? I mean, we've seen 72. Yeah, we've also seen 50 something. That was
right.
What's his face is from Auburn, but yeah. So again, Foster got a raw deal, but also like this falls back more on UCLA than Deshaun Foster.
Right.
Now, let's go ahead and look at Virginia Tech. Brent Pry kind of messed this up. I get it. He was replaced Justin Fuente, who was replacing who was the coach before? Frank Beamer.
Yeah.
So he was replacing, and it just never got going. The defense, he was a DC at Penn State. It was a defense that was good for 1 year, and then it just kind of fell apart. Now, they played a close game against South Carolina. They had a 10-point lead against Vanderbilt just last week, and then you go and you get smacked at home by Old Dominion. That's just going to leave a bad taste in people's mouths. I don't know where Virginia Tech goes from here. However, it should be noted the ACC does appear to be kind of wide open, and now's the time you need to kind of go in and get it. Pete Thamel says that the AD, their budget for athletics is $120 million. He wants that up around 200, which would be in the Clemson, Miami territory, and he wants to spend a lot of money. So we'll see kind of if they pull that off. Can Virginia Tech get back to where they need to be?
I don't know, because the hard thing with Virginia Tech is I've never seen Virginia Tech as you look on them on the schedule and you go, that's going to be a great game.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's never like it was always like a random. You turned it on and they're playing Florida State and they beat Florida State, but it was always by like a field goal. It wasn't like they were out there just whooping on teams. So the expectations of Virginia Tech can't be that high either. Like a 5-win, 6-win ball club that should get people more excited.
I think 15 years ago, the expectations in Blacksburg were high, but now...
Right. Back when like Vic was there, like when Mike and... Was it Marcel? His brother?
I mean, they also had Tyrod Taylor more kind of recently, right, in that era.
So, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things it's how do you get kids to come to Virginia Tech too? Other than you can come running out to... Enter Sandman,
which is exhilarating.
Which would be great, but, when push comes to shove, it's not what would sell me. And do they try to make a play for Beamer?
Yeah, I mean, I think South Carolina, at least in my mind, that's a hard job to leave because you're going from top half of the SEC in terms of school level to bottom quarter of the ACC. And the ACC is really big now, so
yeah.
I think that's just a hard sell. However, I do think that that's the first call you have to make. You have to make Shane say no.
Especially with South Carolina losing 31-7 to Vanderbilt.
Yeah, and
their schedule's not any easier.
No, and Lenore Sellers is hurt, right?
Yeah.
Have you heard timetable on return?
Not yet.
Okay, so Lenore Sellers is hurt. So if this thing kind of gets off the rails and they're 6-6, 7-5, does he listen? And he's like, all right, well, this was kind of my best year that I could have potentially had, and this is what I got. Because I don't think recruiting will be, especially in this day and age, if they do want to spend more in the NIL era, I don't think recruiting for Shane in the Virginia Tech landscape kind of regionally will be that hard. Virginia's got some good players. You got the Carolinas right there. You can shoot up to Ohio if need be, so you're in a good kind of fertile recruiting ground. It's just going to be whether or not Virginia Tech's going to dump money into its football budget, and if Shane's going to say yes. If not, you got to get a recruiter and a developer in that program to kind of bring back.
Yeah, you need a whole. Virginia Tech and UCLA are almost in the same boat where they just need the big overhaul of the entire athletic department and not follow Stanford's role at all.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about the state that you were in down in Disney. However, they were a little. I don't know where Gainesville is. Where's Gainesville?
I think it's in the center of the state.
All right.
So probably a little bit north of me.
Okay. So the game wasn't played in Gainesville. It was played in Baton Rouge. But the team that resides there, the Florida Gators. Let's just talk about DJ Lagway. 5 interceptions. At this point, I understand you're leaving him in there because the game still technically wasn't reached. It was only a 10-point win. But if you're Billy Napier, you got to pull him after 3 interceptions and just let him reset. That game was going. I turned that game off at halftime because I knew who was going to win, and it was going to be LSU. As soon as he threw that pick six, the game was over. Florida's defense, I feel bad for. It's like Florida's defense is the same as Iowa's defense. It's just pleading, just do something offensively, and we'll hold the team where they need to be. Defense has not been the reason why they lost, except for that guy who spit on the guy for the USF game. Where is Florida right now? Billy Napier, by the way, is 500 after 40 games. Yeah,
Billy Napier is getting fired in 1, 2, 3. If he's not fired by the end of 3 games from now, but when that is October 11th. So after the October 11th game, because they play at Miami, shit's going to turn into a bloodbath.
That's this week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then they get a home game against Texas, which, depending on if Arch is a quarterback or
we'll
whatever,
talk about him in just a minute.
But then they also have to travel to Texas A&M. So it's 3 games they very well easily could just get blown out of the water. And if he loses all 3 of those, what's the point on keeping Billy there then? And, DJ's turning into a failed experiment, which I actually thought DJ was going to be way better this year because he showed a lot of promise at the end of the year. But the defense stood tall. That they did everything that they could do. They held LSU to only 20, and 7 of it wasn't even their fault.
Yeah.
So, in reality, they only gave up 13.
What am I doing here? I'm trying to get the stats. Yeah, they allowed 13 points in the second quarter. 7 of that was DJ's fault, throwing that pick six. LSU's offense, kind of was just sputtering. LSU only they got outgained in the game. They only had 322 total yards, LSU. They lost time of possession, but DJ just 5 interceptions was just so bad. LSU's defense is the story of their season so far. Yeah. Now, devil's advocate of that, they paid Cade Klubnik. We'll talk about him in just a second. And they played DJ Lagway. right? And then they played Louisiana Tech or whoever they did in between. So the LSU's offense needs to pick it up if they're going to survive their portion of their schedule, but their defense is legit. DJ Lagway did have 287 passing yards, but something's got to give. I think that if you had to ask the administration off record or the AD, if it's the same AD who fired Dan Mullen, is if he wished he didn't fire Dan Mullen, who only lost 9 games through his first 40 games, he would probably say absolutely. Yeah. Because he let the fan base talk him into that. He had one bad season, especially with the way Florida finished last season. I thought that DJ was going to start a little more kind of on point, and that just has not happened. All right, let's talk about Tennessee, Georgia, which was the early candidate for game of the year until later that night when Texas A&M and Notre Dame played, and now they're in game of the year situation. It was a great game. I don't know how much you caught of it. Tennessee jumped out to a 21-7 lead. Georgia battled all the way back. Then they kind of took the lead. Then Tennessee took the lead. Then Tennessee had them on a 4th and 3 on, their own 20-ish yard line. Gunnar Stockton throws a slot fade to the end zone. Couldn't have handed it to him better. They tie the game. Then Tennessee goes all the way kind of down the field. And this is the part I disagree with Josh Heupel. Tennessee was moving the ball when they were going tempo, playing fast, running the ball, kind of throwing the ball, doing whatever. Josh Heupel, kind of rightfully so, wanted to drain the clock, kick a field goal, win the game. I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem at what spot on the field he started to drain the clock. 50-yard line, he slowed the game down and started running the ball. Georgia then used, I think, 1 or 2 timeouts. Yeah. In that time frame. If it were me and my tempo's killing them, I'm going tempo until you get to that 20-yard line. Now, the downside of that is, devil advocate, you could say, is that what happens if you don't waste enough clock, right? But at that point, Tennessee's offense was, in the last 3 drives, was just clicking, that I would have taken that risk. Great game. I think Tennessee's set up to be in the playoff contention. You have questions about their defense. I'll let you get into that in just a minute. I was very, very impressed with Georgia's offensive ability. Everyone was like, can they run the ball? Can they run the ball? Can they run the ball? Who needs to run when you have Gunnar Stockton? And he kind of slung that ball all over the field. Defense made enough stops. I do have questions about kind of Georgia's defense as well. I don't think that there are any kind of singular powerhouse players, but I feel like Georgia's defensive unit plays as a unit together. But you have questions about the Tennessee defense.
Yeah, obviously you want to sit there and you're like, the guy misses that game-winning field goal, and like automatically you're just mad at the field goal kicker. But you gave up 41 points. They couldn't stop a cold. Georgia had 502 yards offensively. Yeah. You can't do that. You cannot. To get pissy about the kicker missing that field goal when that's the most pressure he's going to be on, at least at that point in the season, but not be ticked off of the fact that you barely could tackle, you couldn't cover a cold, like they almost ran for 200. Like, that's the issue. Your issue is your defense. Your offense played great, but that could be because Georgia's defense is just not great either, because on the flip side, Tennessee also had 496 yards of offense too. So it's one of those deals where both teams have very good methodical offenses in their own right, but both have pretty atrocious defenses in their own rights. Georgia's running defense was a lot better. They only gave up 125, which is still a bunch, but gave up 371 passing. Not good.
Yeah.
But it was a great game, and it's just one of those games where you flip the coin and whoever had the ball last kind of won. Unfortunately for Tennessee, they had the ball last, and they didn't get close enough to kind of. I mean, he missed it pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
It was not a good kick by any means, but shouldn't have been in that situation in the first place because it wasn't even like Georgia or Tennessee struggled to get their touchdowns. It was multiple times just some random guy running 30 yards downfield wide open. And you're like, all right, something's wrong.
So Tennessee, after the interception, mid third quarter or in the third quarter with 4 minutes and change left, they went 5 plays, 75 yards, touchdown. Georgia got a field goal. Then they went 4 plays, 75 yards, touchdown. Then Georgia fumbles. Then they go 4 plays, 4 yards, field goal. And here's my thing. So you get the ball, you go 2-yard pass, incompletion. Then you hit a 12-yard pass and a 9-yard run. And then you hit a 4-yard run. And after the 9-yard run by Star Thomas, that's when you started slowing the game down. You should have, I thought, kept going tempo until you're down around the 20 where you make it a roughly inside of a 40-yard kick. So the fact that I thought that they just slowed it down too soon. But again, because their defense was so porous, he wasn't trying to give them any time left. Again, I don't disagree with the strategy. I just think that the strategy should have come a little bit later in the clock, and that's all. But yet again, I'm an armchair head coach. I'm an armchair quarterback, and I make dumb decisions all the time. So, I mean...
But I tell you what I would do. If you're Alabama, tempo, because that was the Achilles heel of Georgia yesterday. Or not yesterday, but this weekend.
Absolutely. I think Tennessee can do it in a special way that really kind of gets on people, but I think you're right. Like if I'm Bama, I'm going tempo and I'm seeing what else you can go, because as you said, there were players running wide open. And Joey Aguilar, he looks absolutely great. All right, let's stay in the SEC and let's talk about Arch Manning, because it is now, I think, glaringly obvious he needs to be sat down at least for a week. I'm not calling for a benching, but I am calling that he either has everyone fooled with his talent, which I don't think is the case, or he is just so mentally blocked somewhere that he is just... It's affecting something, because I have never seen a quarterback just fall apart immediately in his kind of first year. And Sark is the quarterback whisperer, at least in college. He did it with the Alabama quarterbacks. He had a good kind of thing going at USC before he was fired. He had a good thing going at Washington. He went to Atlanta, and they made a Super Bowl with him as the offensive coordinator. There, like, he knows what he's doing, and he has a good system. What would you do with Arch?
It's kind of hard because you play Sam Houston State next. So it would be a great game to have him, go out there and just keep working, keep at it. You kind of have that lucky grace period there. And then you get Florida at Florida. So as much as you would like to sit him for a week to kind of clear his mind or whatever, you're almost running out of that time.
Yeah.
Because obviously you want him to keep growing and keep building the confidence before getting into SEC play. Because after Florida, you get Oklahoma. And that game is like the Ohio State game was big because it was the first game of the year, 1v2, however, whatever. But the Red River rivalry, that's like bigger on a rivalry scale and media wise. So kind of have to play them, I think. Just roll with it.
They're Michigan from last year. At this point, with Arch, they're Michigan from last year. The stats are somewhere in the low 120s. They ran the ball 55 times for 227. Their defense is outstanding. Their defense has been really good in all 3 games. But Texas is 2024 Michigan.
Now, let's not get it like too twisted. Like, Texas is also running the ball better during the games.
I'm just
like,
saying philosophy,
quarterback play, and everything right now is very Michigan-like from last year.
Yeah, for sure. I do think that they are a little overranked. I think they're 8th this week, just because of the quarterback play. Defense, yes. Running game, yes. But Arch is just at this point holding them back. And you're right. After the Ohio State game, a lot of people looked at San Jose State, UTEP, and Sam Houston as the tune-ups for conference play.
Right.
And it is not going that way. There's nothing being tuned. Nothing is going up. Everything is going down. And whatever the opposite of tune is, that is what's happening with Arch Manning right now. He is getting worse and worse with every single game. Okay, let's move on and talk about another team that I believe is in the downward trajectory, and that is Clemson. I don't know. I understand it's 1 conference loss. I understand everything's ahead of them, but it's now 2 losses on the season, and their quarterback, Cade Klubnik, looks, again, the opposite of comfortable. I don't know if it's the Garrett Riley scheme, but he accounted for 40 plus touchdowns last year, and it's the same offense with mostly the same weapons, and it is just not going well at all. He was 15 of 26 for 207, a touchdown and an interception, QBR 56. He did run the ball 17 times for 62 yards. They had a $174 on the ground. People want to blame the offensive line, me included, but I think that this is a bigger problem than just the offensive line. All props to Haynes King and Georgia. Haynes King had over 300 total yards. He had 211 through the air, 103 on the ground, and a touchdown on the ground. He played very well. I did not know that you could do anytime touchdowns with college football players, but he won me a bet with that. Is Clemson done? Is Clemson cooked, as the kids say?
I wouldn't say they're cooked. I still think they can they can bring it kind of full circle, but again, there's one team on the schedule for them right now that has at least ranked, that's Florida State, who's turning out to be kind of somehow kind of a powerhouse compared to last year.
Is this going to be the cycle with Mike Norvell? Really good, then really bad.
I would really hope
good.
not, because man, what a whirlwind that is for a fan base.
Dude, man, that fan base would be like, oh, well, we were good last year, gonna suck again this year. Might as well not watch.
2 wins next year.
Yeah,
but I mean, they can still finish 10-2, and they can be in the. It's only one ACC loss. They can be still in the talk for the ACC championship. Here's what I don't get, though. They're 1-2. They get booted out of the top 25. Notre Dame's 0-2, and they're still 24.
I
don't understand it. I mean, if they're
So let me ask you this: are Notre Dame's law? I'm not saying Notre Dame shouldn't be ranked at 0-2 with no win. You should at least have a win on your schedule to be ranked. Okay, I will say that right now. I will piss off Notre Dame fans. You need to have at least one win to be ranked. But Notre Dame's losses are better than Clemson's losses, in my mind.
Well, the loss to LSU was a home loss, so that one looks bad. But your loss, it doesn't look bad. Looking at where LSU is now,
Right.
Your Notre Dame's loss to Notre Dame was at home, which kind of it doesn't look bad, but it kind of looks a little worse because it's also a game that you really should have won, but you didn't win because of everything going on. The loss at Georgia Tech, who's turning into a contender for the ACC, is starting to look. It's a loss, but that's still a pretty good loss when you're looking at it now. And you went to Miami, so the strength of schedule wise, loss wise, looks better for Notre Dame, but they still have a win.
Yeah, no, that's and
So it's like
I agree with you. Yeah,
and I'm not saying that Clemson should be like 18. Like Clemson right now would be 25. They would be the gatekeeper, and Notre Dame would be 26. Or if we want to compare them that way, should they be 26? No, they haven't won yet. They don't deserve to be in there yet. North Carolina State, they're 3-0. They would deserve it before that.
I'm really surprised Nebraska, and this is completely off topic, Nebraska is only receiving 9 votes to be ranked.
I think that just has a lot to do with their schedule, probably. Cincinnati, Akron, and Houston Christian.
So, yes, devil's advocate is Indiana's schedule has been just as bad.
Right. Well, I think it's just for the fact that that's Indiana started where they started.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So you can only drop a winning team so far down before it's kind of like, well, what are we even doing?
Sure.
All
right. So I want to touch on this. Austin Simmons, I think, may have lost his job. So he threw 4 interceptions in the first quarters of the 2 previous games, then got injured in the Kentucky game, didn't finish that, played sparsely in the red zone I saw against Arkansas. But this Trinidad Chambliss guy is just really fun to watch. He's a transfer from Ferris State, national champion. That's Division II, everyone. Now he steps up and was not only his team's leading passer on Saturday, he was his team's leading rusher. 62 yards. He had over 400 total yards and 3 touchdowns on Saturday in a 41-35 win against Arkansas. Very entertaining game. Absolutely no notes. It went back and forth, back and forth. There was a total of 45 points scored in the second quarter. 45 points scored in the second quarter between the two teams. Ole Miss does come out with the win. Ole Miss kind of sets the table for their run now, kind of finishing in conference play. I am very interested to watch if Trinidad isn't the starter moving forward. I'm not even going to let you comment because I just wanted to say that I think
go for it.
That he earned the job to me because he looked way better than Austin Simmons did the first 2 weeks, hands down. One thing I will let you comment on, though, is Rich Rod's revenge. I thought it was very poetic when he left West Virginia back in 2006. He was coming off of a loss to Pittsburgh. He, of course, took the Michigan job. NIL and transfer portal was not a thing back then. If it was, I believe he would have had a lot of success at Michigan, given what his coaching record. But he returns to West Virginia, coming off a loss to Ohio, gets Pittsburgh at home, and gets the big-time rivalry dub in the backyard brawl. What can you say about Rich Rod getting the W?
If there was ever a time for a big rivalry win, it's coming after a loss to Ohio.
Yeah, for sure.
So, he kind of, he redeems himself in that aspect. Now, you just got to make sure it's not a fluke and you got to roll. Because your schedule, Big 12 schedule, a wide open schedule.
Yeah.
You can definitely make some noise, especially with your only loss being to a MAC school. We've seen this script before where you lose to a MAC school, but then you kind of go on a tear and no one kind of follows you until you get towards the end of the season. That's a nod to Notre Dame for the end of the season last year.
Nice.
But, yeah, I mean, can they kind of run their table? I don't know, because they played tough, but that generally is how it goes when you play your rival. Can you do it against Kansas now, who's not a rival?
Right. Can you get up again
Yeah.
for a second week? Alrighty, before we turn the page, I wanted to give up my top 10 based on the AP top 10. So I have Ohio State 1. That's fine. I have LSU 2. I do have Penn State 3. I will say, and I do have Penn State fans thinking the same, I'm not impressed with their offense. Their defense is fine. Their offense is doing enough to win games. But against the schedule they have, they should be doing more and looking like a tighter run organization. I'm not saying play has been sloppy. I'm not saying there have been a lot of penalties. I've watched maybe a half. I maybe watched 3/4 total of their 3 games. But it just hasn't looked like a team with a whole bunch of returning starters on the offensive line, 2 returning running backs, and a quarterback. So I will say that. So I have Penn State 3. Miami, I have Miami, then Georgia. Oregon, I think, is being very underrated. They are just sneakily kind of staying in there. I have Florida State. I then have Texas A&M and Oklahoma in there above Texas, and then Illinois is rounding out my top 10. You got any notes on that?
No, you pretty much. I mean, your top 10 makes more sense than the one that's on the screen.
Okay.
I don't know what it is about Penn State, but dog, they can't cover.
Okay.
Like
I would have. Did you see how they didn't cover this past week, though?
It's amazing.
Oh man, I would have been livid.
But I mean, we're gonna find out about Penn State.
Yeah.
Of course, they get a bye week before a big game because God forbid they play like a schedule where they have to play a tough team after playing against a non-tough team. But
I think that will be just a phenomenal game.
It will, and then it'll be Penn State with the whiteout, the toughest atmosphere to play in college football for one night and one night only, and it's just so stupid.
You're gonna pick? I mean, we already have Notre Dame and Ohio State fans. I agree. You just want to go in more on that, or that was pretty much it.
Penn State fans know that I hate them.
Okay, all right.
So it doesn't expect anything.
Breaking news, everyone! Robert hates the Penn State fan base. This is nothing new. Nothing new.
It's a Big Ten thing.
Let's flip the page and go ahead and look at week 4. It's a good slate. Whether you are just a casual observer or a hardcore fan, there's some ranked unranked violence in here. There's some conference games in here, rivalry games in here, stuff that everyone need to pay attention to. So, Rob, how we're going to do this, I think we've done this before. I'm going to bring up a game, talk a little bit. You'll talk a little bit. We'll kind of keep it quick and kind of go down the list.
Word,
you good with that? All righty.
Heck yeah.
Just real quick, Iowa Rutgers Friday night, 8 p.m. Fox. That's exactly what I want to see on my screen on MPA at 8 p.m. on Fox on a Friday night. Is just 2 teams that are inept at offense. The over-under's 45.5. Thoughts on that?
It's actually going to be my thingy.
Okay. So, well then we'll just keep moving on.
Yeah.
The two big dogs in the Big 12, Texas Tech and Utah. They are 17 and 16 respectively. The game is at Utah. It is big noon kickoff, which I think is a 10 a.m. kick local time. Fascinating game. Texas A&M went out and spent all this money in the transfer portal. 10-month blah, blah, blah. We've heard the story. So far, paying off early. They haven't played anyone. Utah really hasn't played anyone either. They're number 16. Kyle Winningham says this is the best offensive line he has ever had at Utah, and it has shown. They push UCLA around, which again doesn't say much. They push Cal Poly and Wyoming around. Again, both teams have played about the same level of competition. Texas Tech, Utah. I'm going to take Texas Tech.
Yeah. I think I think we're going to get an old school shootout for probably most of this game. I think the money's going to come through for Texas Tech, and they're going to, outshoot the shooters.
Yeah.
But that game potentially could be like the game of the night, well, day, or weekend, however you want to look at it. And I appreciate that they decided to put that as the noon slot game, and we weren't getting like, what is it?
Oregon and
State would have been Oregon State would have been pretty good. Bring back the Civil War.
Or Oregon Northwestern, as we did last week.
Yes.
Oh boy,
yes,
was that hard to watch, man.
An Akron Duquesne or something like that.
Yeah,
like a real barn burner. Yeah, lots of points.
All right, so let's move on to Syracuse, Clemson. Can Clemson bounce back against Syracuse? They're favored by 17.5. I'm going to say Clemson wins just because of the talent on the D-line, maybe a little anger. Maybe Dabo finally starts yelling or something, get these guys motivated because Clemson's looked unmotivated through 3 weeks. I'm going to take Clemson, but I'm not going to take them to cover.
I'm going to go Clemson as well. I'm hoping this is like a pizza party game. Dabo breaks out the checkbook, starts buying some pizzas for everyone.
Okay.
But it's a must-win situation for Clemson. It's a must-win for Syracuse, but more on the side of Clemson. They got to get back to the winning ways, touch the whether they get off that bus and Dabo says, don't a single person touch that rock until you guys earn that or something. But talent alone, they should be able to handle Syracuse.
I will say that since Fran Brown did his little Herb Brooks impersonation with Syracuse, they looked buttoned up last week. They looked a lot better last week. However, it was against a lesser opponent. In the 3:30 slot, you have Auburn and Oklahoma. It is at Norman. Oklahoma and John Mateers just looked excellent this year. Oklahoma's defense with Brent Venables calling the plays. It looks like a Venables.
You got it. Sound it out.
Brent Venables, thank you. Defense that he had forever at Clemson. Auburn, I watched them week 1. Then they blew out Ball State. They covered against South Alabama. Now they're on the road against Oklahoma, then Texas A&M. Hugh Freeze's seat might be cooling off, at least for now. Maybe he won't get fired, but these next 3 games, because then they get Georgia at home, will tell the tale. I am going to take John Mateer and that Oklahoma defense to beat up on Auburn a little bit. I just think it's kind of too early in Auburn's story this year to kind of compete. If I would have a guess, though, it would be Auburn covering the 6.5 spread.
I'm going to go opposite. I'm going to go Auburn.
Okay.
And the sole reason I'm going to go for Auburn is I think Oklahoma. This is just me being me, but I'm going to say that Oklahoma is getting a little sleepy. They're going to, they got some big games coming up. This is the best Oklahoma's looked in however many years.
3 years, 4 years, yeah.
The hype's really starting to build up. Mateer's playing great. The defense is playing great. They beat Michigan 2 weeks ago, which we said was going to happen. This is the best Brett Venables been coaching. And it looks like they finally figured it out. Who would have guessed they just needed a competent quarterback to do it?
Everybody.
But I'm going to go Auburn, mainly because I never pick Auburn.
Okay.
And
that's fair.
The teams are actually almost the same, not the same, but they play pretty identical where the quarterbacks are pretty mobile. And it'll be interesting to see if Oklahoma's speed on defense is able to contain, and also vice versa for Auburn. but yeah, let's go Auburn. Why not?
Last year of note, Auburn had this game won, and Oklahoma pulled it out of the fire. I don't know if people remember that. Like Auburn had this game won until their quarterback, whoever was there, Peyton Thorne, threw an interception, and Oklahoma kind of like rallied real quick and won the game in kind of the last couple minutes. So let's then go to Lincoln, Nebraska at 3:30 is the number 21 Michigan Wolverines taking on the Cornhuskers. Cornhuskers haven't really played anyone all year. Michigan has played one real opponent, held their own-ish. They have said the governor is off of Bryce Underwood. We experimented. We took the air out of the ball. That will never happen again. They did against Central Michigan. That's the best quarterback performance I've ever seen a Michigan quarterback play. I know Devin Gardner had some plays too, but Bryce Underwood was just fantastic on Saturday. You know what? I'm going to take that back. He did throw the interception, so it's not the best performance I have ever seen. The over-under is 45.5. I think that's a little low. I think that this game's in the upper 20s, low 30s for both teams. Nebraska's offense is really cooking. Can Wink and this defense get back to the aggression? I was very impressed with the defense last Saturday of Michigan. However, I am going to take Nebraska at home, but I do think we after the game, you go, that Michigan can beat anyone in the Big Ten because the governor's off Bryce Underwood. They're throwing, they're running really well. And I think the loss on Saturday is a trampoline into the rest of Big Ten play where they go on an undefeated run until Columbus.
Yeah. This game is kind of a tricky game to kind of wrap around because I don't know what Michigan team we're going to get. If we get the Michigan team that played against Oklahoma, you might as well put a bow on it for Nebraska and say, we'll see you next year. Have a good one.
Yeah.
If we get the team that played against Central Michigan, now granted it was Central Michigan, and I think me and you could have scored because everyone was open.
Yeah.
Against Central Michigan. Michigan could win the game, and they could win it pretty handily. Nebraska hasn't played a defense like Michigan's yet. Michigan's defense is flying around, and we're playing aggressive, and you can always tell when we're aggressive because the games go our way when we're aggressive.
You want to take Michigan before the season. Before the season, you said Michigan would start 2-2, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But you had seen...
And my loss was to Nebraska.
And your loss was to Nebraska.
And I wasn't sure who we're going to get because we didn't know how we were going to use Underwood. And I think we're still 50-50 on what we want to do.
Sure.
Because Nebraska's defense is going to be a lot better than Central Michigan's. I think Nebraska's offense has more. They know what they want to do offensively.
Sure.
Which it's going to be a close game if Nebraska wins by like a field goal. If Michigan wins, it's going to be more than a touchdown, more than likely.
Okay.
Like Michigan, I think Michigan scores on them. It's not going to be a blowout, but like a 10-14 kind of win. But Nebraska, it's going to come down to like a 3-point. Who makes what mistake? Can Michigan's secondary cover anyone? Because they couldn't against Oklahoma. Like they were kind of in shambles. I'm going to take Nebraska. But I think it's going to be close. It just depends on what we do with Bryce.
I think this is the Bussin' with the Bussin' Bowl, right?
Yeah.
Right? With Taylor Lewan, Will Compton. And Will has the pulse on the Nebraska fan base. And he has been talking that this game is a measuring where you are in a program type game, right?
Right.
So Nebraska's going to come out swinging. I do think that they win the game. I picked them, and I am a little superstitious, so some of that is playing into this. But of note, Michigan's been in that fire already. They went to Norman, and they weren't out of it until the very end. They played a good game. I would say the play calling, protecting Bryce, because you were not on that podcast last week, but I said the play calling was to protect Underwood, to not shake his confidence. If now they're saying Governor's off and you're just going to let him release, I love Bryce Underwood against Dylan Raiola. That matchup, I'm going to pick Bryce Underwood and put money on him 9 out of 10 times.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I said you just don't know. You don't know what. Yeah. Because we could wake up Saturday, games on, and Justice Haynes is trying to throw hands again because we're just running into a brick wall for 4 quarters.
If Michigan comes out, and we'll know the first drive of the game, first 2 drives,
we should,
because the first drive is always scripted, right? So the first 2 drives, if they're coming out on their second drive and Underwood's just doing his thing and it's very creative and it's not handing the ball off or whatever, I'm going to feel very confident that Michigan's going to win that game.
Like, still run the ball, Justice Haynes. Because
no.
Because he's phenomenal.
I love Justice Haynes.
But we need to, evolve the game.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. We need to get away from that. All right. Notre Dame, just real quick, does Notre Dame cover the 25.5 against Purdue?
God, they better.
Okay,
because
great.
that's one of those, easy. I think USC covered 25.
Yeah, I think they were close to it. Yeah, it was close. Yeah, I think it was 23, but yeah, it was close. All right, South Carolina, Missouri. The big question with this game is Lenore Sellers going to play? Bo Perbula. I think Penn State fans have got to be Drew Aller came back, or we could have had Bo. Little running, little passing, very John Mateer like this week. Very, very dual threat for Missouri. I like Missouri to win. I think South Carolina will hang around and even cover the 11.5, but I think it'll only an 8 to 10 point win for Missouri there. Thoughts on Missouri, South Carolina?
Yeah, Missouri kind of just looks like a better version of Vanderbilt.
Okay.
A more put together,
sure.
Bo, Diego, they essentially kind of play the same.
Yeah.
If Sellers isn't playing, this is almost a runaway for Missouri then.
Yeah, you would at least think on paper, right? Right. Alrighty. Florida's just absolute gauntlet. I did see last week the remaining Florida schedule. It could, depending on what plays out, they literally could play ranked opponents the rest of their schedule, which is just brutal. The number was Miami 5.5 earlier. It is now up to 7.5 for Miami. They're playing the U. Carson Beck looks in control. The defense looks fast. Miami looks fast on offense. They have this little this slot wide receiver. He has to have 99 speed on College Football 26. He is just when I watch him, I'm like, that looks like Tyreek Hill in college. That's what I legitimately thought. So the question is, can Florida rebound? I think that the answer is yes. I think that this is close, but I just think DJ Lagway eventually turns into DJ Lagway and turns the ball over. And I don't think Carson Beck turns the ball over. I don't think the offensive coordinator Shannon's going to let Carson Beck turn the ball over. They're going to get the run game going late in the game, and I think Miami goes toe-to-toe. I think Miami doesn't step on a rake this week. However, I do think that stepping on a rake is coming. I'm going to take Miami to win, and I'm going to take them to cover the 7.5.
I don't know if you remember, but last year you came over to my place, and there was a game that was on TV.
Miami, Florida.
And it was a Miami, Florida.
Yeah.
And watching that game, it was the biggest beatdown I think I've watched on big name programs in a long time.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that College Game Day is going to Miami for this game is a disgrace because there's such other great schools they could have gone to for this week that Miami is probably going to put 35 on Florida, and Florida's going to be lucky if they score 14, and we might watch a public shunning of an organization by the end of the day.
And any chance, Billy, if that happens, 35-10,
If
Billy gets fined.
If they get mollywopped, you got to get rid of them. You got to be like, listen, Billy, what are we doing?
Yeah.
You can't. You got embarrassed last year. If you get embarrassed this year, it's not good. It's not good for recruits.
It's one thing to be embarrassed by the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft, right? Cam Ward, had that on lock. I don't think Carson Beck's going to be the number 1 pick. I'm not even sure Carson Beck's going to be a first-round quarterback. Time will tell. Scouts will scout, right? But you can't. You got to keep the game within 10 points. You would think.
Oh yeah, I would rather, if you're on the hot seat, I would rather you lose close than get blown out. Obviously, yeah. So if you're gonna lose, make it entertaining at least to where people go, Florida was in this,
right?
A little something here, something there, but
that's why I think it's close for a half, and then Miami just slowly, not just. I just think it's kind of slowly, and I think it's, a 10 to 14 point dub, but it feels closer than what it was. Illinois at Indiana is a very sneaky game that many people, the casual observer, is like, Indiana's good, Illinois is good, ? Illinois' got to find a running game, that's for sure. I was not impressed with their running game at Duke. Indiana's playing a real opponent for the first time since they played Notre Dame in the college football playoff and really kind of just got manhandled. This is Illinois' quote-unquote best team in the past 25 years. I would probably agree with that. I would say at least in the last 20 years. Indiana, I'm not going to lie, their coach is kind of pissing me off. He needs to shut up and stop talking. I am tired of hearing that Indiana's a real program with real school and we're just going to play like the SEC because, right now SEC teams are at least playing high-level programs. You're playing nobodies, and you want the respect of big-time program. Illinois at least went to Duke. Okay, who'd you go to? That's right, you went to no one and nothing because you're Indiana. You have the most losses of any single college football program. That's how bad you are. You do not get to dictate the respect of which you think you deserve. I did not think that I would get so upset at Indiana, but here I am, and they don't even deserve it. I'm going to take Illinois. I'm going to take them plus the 5.5. That is actually going to be my leg of the parlay. Spoiler alert. That is just what it is. I made that decision right now. So give me Illinois to go on the road and beat Indiana.
Yeah, I'm going to take Illinois as well. Illinois, in my opinion, has more balls.
That's a good way to put it. That's a fantastic way to put it. They're not scared of anybody.
No, you look at their schedule and they played. It was a tough Duke game in the beginning. Is this something beeping on your end or my end?
It's the microwave upstairs.
Okay.
Yes.
I was like, hold on.
No, you're good. You're good.
And it was also a road game for Illinois, so they've been here and they've done it. Indiana's not a team. We've seen what happens when Indiana plays good teams. Indiana plays Ohio State, they get curb stomped. They played Notre Dame, they get curb stomped. But hey, Indiana goes and plays Purdue, put 75 on them.
Right.
So, until Indiana starts continually beating good teams, then it's kind of easy to not pick them to win.
I just want to see. So Illinois, the one thing that really kind of I liked about them in the Duke game is they forced some turnovers, right? Darian Mensah, they forced him into some turnovers. They forced some fumbles. This defense is exceptionally sound, I found. Yes, I felt like that first half of the Duke game, I even said as much. They got outplayed, and I will stand by that. But they forced turnovers, and the defense kind of reminded me of a Michigan where you're like, I feel like their offense is controlling the game, but yet their defense somehow plays really well at the end. They did find a running game last week against Western Michigan. Everyone finds a running game against Western Michigan, but I do like also the senior quarterback on the road again. Okay, so Baylor and Arizona State. Arizona State lost to Mississippi State out of the rankings at Baylor, who lost to Auburn week 1, then beat SMU and then beat Sam Houston State. Sawyer, it's SAW. So
Sawyer.
Okay. Robinson, he's been just fantastic this year. He has already in 3 games over 1,000 passing yards, 10 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. Arizona State's kind of been this. They haven't looked great. They haven't looked bad. They've been middle of the road. Sam Leavitt, 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. They got to get the running back going. Give me Baylor at home to beat Arizona State. I just really like their quarterback play.
Yeah, that's a good pick because Arizona State is they're kind of iffy, which is weird because again they have all of the tools to be. They have the prolific wide receiver, they have a seasoned quarterback. They're a team that should not have lost to Mississippi State of all teams, but I guess that's just a blessing you have when you're in the Big 12 is you can lose and still just pave your way.
Yeah.
But yeah, Baylor, ever since that first game with Baylor where they played Auburn, that they were in that game for a long time and then they just kind of got away from them. But the team can score. We're just going to see if Arizona State can stop them.
And then we're also 4 minutes away from being 0-2 against SMU.
Yes.
And pulled that one out of the fire.
Yeah.
So, the Big 12 historically over the last 2 or 3 seasons has been, can you win the 1-score games, right? Arizona, no. Against Mississippi State. Baylor, yes, against SMU. So, will it be another 1-score game? I think it's a 1-score game, absolutely. It's just who wins it this time and is able to kind of who's left 2-2, who's left 3-1. And finally, Michigan State fans, I feel very bad for you because you have to stay up until 11 p.m. Eastern to watch your team on Fox against USC. And I do think that this is a much closer game than the USC 18.5.
This is where I thought that game day should have went.
Really?
Yeah, because it's like, going through all the ranked games, you couldn't do Utah, Texas Tech because that's big noon.
Sure. I mean, you could, but you won't.
You kind of let them do their thing.
Yeah.
You didn't want to do Oregon State.
Because Oregon State sucks.
Right. Pretty much. You didn't want to do... They could do Nebraska, Michigan. They could have. But you already had Michigan involved in one already within the past 2 weeks. So that would bring you down to Missouri, South Carolina, which would have been a good one if South Carolina would have won last week.
Correct.
Then, okay. The dumpster fire of Miami, Florida, stupid. You don't want to do Indiana because you already made that mistake once. Indiana got embarrassed. Is what it is. So USC, Michigan State, it couldn't work. Because you're not going to go anywhere else for USC except if Michigan wins out and USC wins out. That could be a top 15 matchup because I think there's enough time where both would work their way down. But, because they're at Illinois, at Notre Dame, at
USC quietly has gotten their offensive mojo back. It's amazing what happens when you get a quarterback to play on time and in rhythm, right? Now, USC started hot last year and then faded down the stretch, and we'll see. Michigan State, we're still trying to figure out who they are. I do like USC because it's at home, and for the Spartan players, that is 11 p.m. kick. Now, your 18 to 24-year-olds, time is a construct, as the kids say. It does not matter. They're ready to play whenever. Will it be an adjustment? Yes, absolutely. But I do like SC to win the game at home. I do not like them to cover the number, though. So give me Lincoln Riley. Give me the much improved defense. Again, it was Purdue, Georgia Southern, and Montana State. But give me them to the defense, the much improved defense, the much improved offense to beat Michigan State, but in a close game that's way closer than the 18.5.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. It should be a close game. Historically speaking, if you're going from East Coast to West Coast, it's usually not in your favor, which would hammer more. That would give me like a 5-point swing to the home team.
Okay.
So I think that Michigan State is going to cover, because I think it's minus plus 18.5.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a big number, and a Michigan State defense can kind of cover that. But I think USC still gets to win.
Okay. All right. Cheapest ticket, most inexpensive ticket. Cheapest and most inexpensive are the same things.
Yeah, there you go, buddy. You're getting there.
Oh my gosh.
It's all right. It's Tuesday.
And most expensive. Most expensive is the Florida Miami 172. Cheapest, there's an 11 for Mississippi State, Northern Illinois. There's a 6, Gardner Webb, Ohio. That might be the winner chicken dinner. It is tied with the Charlotte and Rice game at $6 a piece. So, yeah. So you want to spend a lot of money? Go see Florida at Miami. If you don't want to spend a lot of money, go see either Rice at Miami or Gardner Webb at Ohio. Okay?
Just make sure you put it down in the comments which one you're going to.
Thank you. Robert, yes.
Yep, no problem.
Drop them in the comment. Which game would you rather go to? Gardner Webb at Ohio or Charlotte and Rice?
Yeah.
See, Robert's getting the hang of this podcast thing.
Yeah,
all right.
it takes a while, but I get there.
Now it's time for everyone's favorite segment, which is the parlay segment. I already told you mine, which is the Illinois covering the 5.5 at Indiana. I actually think that they win outright, but I guess we'll kind of find out here. AKA Simeon. He is picking JMU outright, who is 8.5-point favorites over Liberty. I do think that that's a closer game than the 8.5, and I do think he will be sweating that a little bit. So we have JMU outright. We have a Illinois plus the points. Robert, you are left in suspense. What do you got?
First, I was gonna do the Iowa Rutgers.
Okay.
Because the Rutgers plus 2.5, actually, I kind of like, because I actually think Rutgers wins that game.
Okay.
But, in true Robert fashion, I want everyone to stay up late. I want you 1 a.m. sitting there going, oh, are we going to get this? I hope we get this. Michigan State plus 18.5.
Yeah.
Lock that one in for me, because it kind of makes sense. But listen, I could have done the Fresno State Hawaii, the 11:59 kickoff.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Michigan State one actually seems a little more enticing, just because I think it's going to be closer.
I agree with you. Now, 2 weeks ago, Simeon ruined the parlay by double dipping. Tulane, last week you ruined the parlay by double dipping USF. No one is double dipping this week, but I guess it's my turn. And I would say out of all three of those legs, I hate mine the most.
What was yours again?
Mine was Illinois plus 5.5 over Indiana. So I would like that number to be bigger, but it is what it is. Yeah, so we'll just kind of see how this goes. If you've kind of done our parlay, but then bet like the straight bets, the 2 out of 3, you're probably walking away with some cash because some of those have hit, given the odds. Okay, finally, the last thing that we need to do before we get out of here, and that would be the giveaway. Listen, we're giving away $40. All you got to do is click on the link below or copy and paste the link below. It will take you to a Google Forms page. You pick a winner between, Robert will tell you in just a second because he knows, he hasn't told me yet, between one of the two teams. You check in on, you don't even got to watch the game. You check in the scoreboard. If you win, you get entered into a pool with all of the other winners. Right now, you might be the only one because we haven't gotten no responses or one response, them being my dad, who didn't want the money. And it'll go around on a wheel and you get picked. And if you're the only one and you get the answer right, you get $40 to your PayPal account. Yay. So, Robert, who are the people choosing against here?
All right. So don't let the records fool you with this matchup.
Okay.
ESPN's got matchup predictor 50.3 to 49.7.
Very close. Very close.
It's a 4:00 game.
Love
Weird
that
time of the day. That's what we like to see. North Carolina State versus Duke.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It could end up Duke's first 3 games, Elon, Illinois, Tulane. Illinois and Tulane, two good teams. Both of them, I believe, are undefeated. North Carolina State's played East Carolina, Virginia, and Wake. They're no cupcakes. So it could be a very interesting matchup. Make sure you choose wisely.
Alrighty.
I would go Duke, but you know how that goes.
Yeah. That's what people want to hear when they're betting on our parlay. You know how that goes. All right, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for letting us steal an hour and 22 minutes of your life. Wash your hands, you filthy animals. Again, go win some money, pick a winner. We'll be back next week. Follow, like, subscribe, share. Bye-bye, everybody.